So welcome everyone. My name is Kiva Schuler. I am the CEO and the founder here at the Jai Institute for Parenting. Our work in the world is to train and certify parenting coaches in a methodology that actually allows transformation to occur in families. Our work is wholly parent-centric, and we'll talk about why that is today. It means a lot to me that our work is parent-facing, and we are not another, here's how to get your children to behave in disguise with a pretty bow on it, but rather doing personal growth work with parents in the name of their children. When I was a kid, I had a really, not that unique experience, but I had got to have something that a lot of kids don't, which was perspective, because my parents were divorced. And so in my mom's home, my mom would be the first to tell you that she was not a perfect parent by any means, but she loved me. She was kind most of the time. She believed in me. She supported my dreams. She gave me a lot of leeway to make mistakes and figure things out for myself without admonishing me or most of the time, shaming me. My dad remarried, and his wife and he had a child, my half-brother Ian, who's 7 years younger than me, just had his first baby. And that house was the polar opposite. It was incredibly punitive. Something that he did on Tuesday that was cute and his mom would laugh with him with would get him locked in the bathroom for an hour a couple of days later. He regularly had his mouth washed out with soap and sometimes even Tabasco. And what I could see as a teenager, when he was like 7 and 8 years old, is that the way that he was parenting was crushing his little spirit. I could see how confusing it must be for him to not have consistency, to even know what the rules of the day were, and that when he didn't know, he was so harshly punished. It just all seemed so incredibly unfair. And so I made myself a promise. When I was 16 years old, he was being punished for not finishing his dinner, which meant that he had to literally gag down soggy, cold, re-microwaved 3 times fish sticks before he could get up from the table. And his little body was slumped over. He was just broken in that moment. And I just thought to myself, when I become a parent, I'm going to do whatever it takes to do it well. That informed my choices in college. I studied psychology with a specialty in family systems. No surprise, I became a life coach. And I thought, well, with all of my education, I should have met that bar, right? Like I should be a parent who knows how to control her temper. And of course, that was not the case. My kids are 17 and 18 now, but when my daughter was 3, she had very fine curly blonde hair, and she went through a period where she just refused to brush it. Anyone else have kids like that? Like, you may not brush my hair. And we were going somewhere, and I had a story that she needed to look a certain way. It was probably with my mom, who's very caught up in appearances. And she refused. And I, in a moment of sheer and utter frustration, took the brush and swatted her on the tush with it. And she looked at me with a face that broke my heart. It was shock at first, and then fear, and then tears. And I felt shame crawling up into my face, and I dropped the brush, and I thought, this is not it. I am not living up to that promise that I made myself. And where the rest of the world might say, yeah, but we need children to listen, I realized that it was ridiculous to be angry with a 3-year-old for not wanting to brush her hair when I was the one doing the hitting. That it was me that was going to have to change. And so my work as a life coach began to shift. I had a podcast at the time. I started interviewing conscious parenting, peaceful parenting advocates. My kids were already in Montessori school. I dove deeper into the Montessori pedagogy, planes of development. And that eventually led to what is now, 13 years later, the Jai Institute for Parenting, where we have become really the gold standard, I believe, of parent coaching education in the world, because it's not kids whose behavior needs to change first. It's adults. When adults do the work of personal growth and transformation, children actually have the best path to learning, which is modeling the behavior that is being demonstrated in their home. When adults have emotional intelligence, children learn emotional intelligence. When adults model conscientious, empowered communication, children learn communication. When we can stay calm, cool, and collected, regardless of the chaos that children can be, our children will eventually, when their brains are mature enough to do so, learn to do the same. Thanks, Jody. I'm glad you got here. So this is our work. And so today, rather than jumping right to the slides, I wanted to talk about what peaceful parenting means here at Jai, because we may have a different definition than perhaps other thought leaders in the space, or maybe even your own assumptions about what peaceful parenting is. We're going to talk about the 5 pillars, right? The 5 essential pillars that parents get to learn, practice, and finally embody to actually be peaceful parents, so that it's not just a nice idea. And then I'm going to talk about why coaching is required for that to occur. Sound good? I'm sorry, it was hard to get in. I don't like when things are hard. Amy, do you have a question? If you could type it in the chat for now, that would be fantastic. And we should have time for open Q&A at the end. All right, so anyone confused about gentle parenting, peaceful parenting? Like, what does that even mean? Does it mean that everyone's always happy and it's always rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns, and our children are never upset, never misbehave, and I am the perfect parent who never, ever loses my temper? Yeah, Alicia, is it the same as conscious parenting? Is it the same as gentle parenting? I hear you. I'm going to define peaceful parenting as we see it here at the Jai Institute for Parenting. Thank you. Here at Jai, peaceful parenting is not what we call the 3 Ps. So sometimes it's easier to define a thing by saying what it isn't. So first of all, peaceful parenting is not permissive parenting. I want you to write that down. Peaceful parenting is not permissive parenting. There was an article just this morning on Yahoo News about how gentle parenting is ruining the world. And it is because of this one assumption / misconception. Peaceful parenting is still parenting. Peaceful parents still set limits, have rules, have boundaries, say no. It's simply that we are moving into the true essence of discipline. Does anyone know what the true, what does discipline really mean? Right? The root of the word discipline is disciple. And so in our role as peaceful parents, it is to become the teacher, the guide, the mentor. Yes, to guide, to teach for our children, rather than being their drill sergeant, taskmaster, judge and jury, disciplinarian in the meaning of doling out the consequences, right? So peaceful parenting is not permissive parenting. We are still parenting, and we take that responsibility to prepare the future adult that this child will someday be for the very complex, challenging world that we live in. Peaceful parenting prepares the future leaders that will go out into the world and hopefully change so much of what so desperately needs to be changed. So that's the first P. It's not permissive. Number two, it's not perfect. Peaceful parenting is not perfect parenting. I know it looks all shiny on Instagram, but what we're settling into here at Jai especially is the depth of our whole humanity as parents. As a parent, when we can sit in our own guilt and learn from it, when we can process our shame, when we can navigate our anger with internal safety, these become the tools to allow our children an authentic and deep, and dare I say, intimate relationship with us. We're going to get mad. We're going to have bad days. And when we learn that that is okay, we show our children that it's okay for them too. Do I have any recovering people pleasers in the house? Any recovering perfectionists in the house? Any hyper vigilant, emotionally attuned people who are aware of every emotion that the people that we love are feeling so that we don't risk abandonment in the house? Where'd that all come from? Where'd it come from? Yeah, it came from the way that we were parented. And so in the name of our children, we get to do this work of embracing our entire human experience and learning that we are worthy and deserving and forgivable no matter what. And then the final P, and probably the most obvious one, is that peaceful parenting is not punitive. It's not punitive. We are not using external manipulative practices like timeouts, punishments, illogical consequences, and I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. Shaming, demeaning, belittling, diminishing, scolding, patronizing, making fun of, stonewalling, to change our children's behavior. We learn to do it differently. The tools that we use as peaceful parents are not punitive, but they are powerful. They are rooted in effective communication. So in our work at the end, right, like the pot of gold at the end of the Jai rainbow, is that communication, effective communication, becomes the very effective replacement for punishments, consequences, timeouts, even external rewards strategies like sticker charts or, whatever those things are called. Sticker charts, reward charts. And that what we are doing is empowering our children, building them up instead of cutting them down to develop what is called intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the inner compass of doing the right thing even when no one is watching, right? We're not doing it for validation. We're doing it because we have learned values, morality, an ethical compass that drives our decision-making process in our brains as taught to us by our parents. So what is peaceful parenting? It is parenting through leadership. Everything that I just described is leadership. A leader is a person who advocates for another human being to do, be, or have more, which means all parents are leaders by definition. And so what we work on here with our students is developing those leadership skills within themselves first, for their own parenting, or for the, if you're an educator, this absolutely maps to the classroom. If you're a therapist working with children, this absolutely maps to the children that you're working with. And then giving you the tools to lead other parents to also develop our skills. Isn't that cool? Any questions about that? You guys, we're going to be giving away some books in this session today. And so if you hear something that you like, write #resonate in the chat, and then Heather will pick 3 winners. My book is called The Peaceful Parenting Revolution. It absolutely shares the Jai framework. And so, yes, we'll be doing that here shortly. Awesome. Amazing. Oh, Jody. I think that this message of Jai brings people to tears because we know how right it is. Now you're going to get me going. It breaks my heart that so many children are being asked to change their behavior so that adults feel better. And it's been that way for generations, right? None of us are doing that on purpose. None of us, it's like a collective blind spot that we have. And so I'm right there with you. And it's so obvious once you see it that the solution lies in parents. It's not about getting kids to change anything. It's about empowering adults to have the insight to know that they get to go first. And that's what fires me out of bed every morning to do the work that we do here. It burns my because I truly believe that when more parents see this and do this, whether it's at Jai or anywhere else, we will change the world. I mean, kids who are raised with empathy and compassion and confidence and are allowed to be who they are. I mean, come on, people. Like, let's go. We got work to do. We say our work here at Jai will be done when peaceful parenting is just called parenting. That's when we'll know we can go sit on the beach. Until then, we're here. We're going to work so hard. All right, so let's talk about the 5 foundations of peaceful parenting and how they build on each other. Our work here at Jai is rooted in evidence-based scientific methodologies. It works. And the reason is that we're essentially providing a human adult education program to parents. But the thing is that when we're working with adults, we have a lifetime of conditioned reactive behavior that we're up against. And that behavior lives underneath the conscious mind, right? So the part of our brain that is actually making decisions every day conscientiously is only about 20% of our brain. And the rest of our brain is on autopilot, right? Like when we're driving home, we don't have to think about, oh, I need to put my blinker here and I need to turn right here. We do that on autopilot. And that's how most life works. And so this is why we do not offer our transformational parenting coach course directly to parents, because more information can't break through to the subconscious level of actually evoking behavior change, right? This is why you guys are here, I'm going to guess, right? I'm going to guess you've read all the books. Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. Your feed on Instagram is like parenting expert after parenting expert. And yet maybe you still had that swat your baby on the tush with the hairbrush moment yesterday too. Or you're yelling, even though you so desperately want to stop. It's because coaching is an essential element of actual human adult behavior change. Does that make sense? Cool. Oh, it's World's Teacher Day. That's so cool. Okay, great. So we teach these foundations in the course that you will be using with your clients, but it's your coaching that creates the transformation, right? Information without coaching just leads to more what I like to call shelf help, right? Like the book just goes up on the shelf and nothing actually changes, or in this case, the videos. So how do we do that? The 5 foundational elements of peaceful parenting are as follows. The first foundation, right? If we were building a house, we need a solid cement floor. And here at Jai, that solid cement floor is nervous system regulation, otherwise known as polyvagal theory. Nervous system regulation is an ability that adults have with fully developed brains, mature brains, to regulate our nervous system before we hit the moment of explosion, right? So our nervous system is kind of like a tea kettle. And, you know, life is hard, right? We're exhausted. There are so many responsibilities on our individual plates. Of course, we get dysregulated. And then someone cuts us off in traffic and nervous system regulation is learning tools and practices. It's like going to the gym. It's building a muscle where we get in front of the escalation of our nervous system before it causes harm to ourselves or others. It takes practice. People think that the way that does anyone have anyone in your life where like, well, this is just how I get angry? You know, like, sorry, I exploded at you. I mean, this is just how I do anger. You're just going to have to deal with it. I'm like, oh, those people, oh, I don't mean to diminish it. It's a very real belief, but it's not accurate. We can absolutely learn tools to soften and quiet our nervous system. And that is foundational to the rest of what we teach. Because if that doesn't happen, the nervous system exploding the teapot will always win. There comes a point where willpower cannot get in front of reactive conditioned behavior. And so we need to show people how to get in front of it. So that's the first foundation. Yeah, and we'll all have our moments, and that's where repair comes in, and we'll get there here eventually. So then the next layer is emotional intelligence, right? Because once we learn to regulate our nervous system, we can become more attuned to our emotional experience. Humans have a rainbow of emotions available to us that are very useful tools in our discernment, in our boundaries, in how we parent, in how we are in relationship with other people. But we don't know how to feel them because we're living up here in our heads. Emotional intelligence is actually learned in the body. It's something called somatic practice, if you're familiar. It's very, very powerful. It's a tool that we use in our coaching program to allow people to feel and start to discern, distinguish, hold distinct different emotions as they come up in life, and learn to express those emotions without causing harm to another human being. Emotional intelligence is now considered to be a powerful indicator of success, fulfillment, and life happiness than IQ. And what I love about this is, to a certain extent, IQ is, we're born with it, right? It's kind of, our IQ is what our IQ is. But everybody can learn emotional intelligence. Neuronormative, let me be specific. Neuronormative people and many neurodiverse people can learn emotional intelligence. Isn't this good news? I think so. And so that's the second piece, is emotional intelligence. The third piece, so we're teaching parents to stay calm, cool, and collected. We're teaching them to feel their feelings and to learn to communicate them effectively, which leads to the third pillar, which is, now we got to go a little bit deeper. And we get to make peace with our parenting past, right? We're comfortable with our emotions. We're gonna go look at how the way that we were parented is impacting our parenting. Oftentimes what will happen is there will be a pendulum, right? So for example, I was born in 1973. So I'm Gen X, and like many Gen Xers, we were the latchkey generation. We were the first generation that primarily had two working parents. My mom was divorced. It was the first generation of many single mothers, or more. And so for me, what I had to navigate was the hyper parenting reaction to the lack of parenting that I had as a child. And so the way that we were parented will always have an impact on how we're parenting until we create here at JAI what we call a cohesive narrative, so that we can free our children from those generational patterns and allow them their own journey. This sometimes brings up questions about how coaching is different than therapy. Is anyone asking that in this moment? We are not therapists. One of the things that you'll learn here at JAI is how to partner with traditional mental health care providers and practitioners so that you can refer out. And every parent has their stuff that is not always in need of that kind of support, right? We are not diagnostic here in our work as parenting coaches, but we are certainly here to receive and hold the stories of our clients' parenting past in the name of their ability to move on from them. And we have very specific tools and practices to do that safely. Yes, Melissa, we don't give advice. We assist the client to find the solution within themselves. Perfectly said. Therapists don't actually give advice either. It's interesting. I think that they are equipped to navigate diagnoses, trauma, things that are beyond our scope as parenting coaches. We can be trauma informed, which also means that we know when it's time to call in a different approach, I would say. Okay, so that's the third layer, is we get to let go of the bag of rocks we've been carrying around for generation and generation, and we can keep the gifts, right? We can keep the strengths, we can keep the grit and the resilience and the whatever the good stuff was, and we can release the rest. Any questions on anything that I've shared so far? Thank you for letting me do this without slides, you guys. I am enjoying myself more. I hope that this is an effective way of sharing. Amazing. Yeah, Jody, I mean, Jody just said a diagnosis can be dangerous and that people believe they're stuck with it and can't change. It has its role to play. And, you know, as coaches, our work is to really hold the space for a parent to create intentionality around their parenting and to hold them accountable in a safe, loving, compassionate container to follow through on that intention. To create the space for them to become the parenting expert of the children that they have in the phase of life that they're in, so to speak. Cool. All right, great. Okay, so nervous system regulation, emotional intelligence, making peace with your parenting past. Now we're going to start moving into more what to do, right? We've kind of got a clean slate here, right? We've got a parent who is like, okay, I can feel my feelings. I can, you know, see my child as a whole person who is separate from me and doesn't actually owe me anything. And so in this next layer, we get a bit into child development and attachment science. If you're familiar at all with attachment science, it's a continuum, right? And it goes from disorganized attachment styles to secure attachment styles. And this is an area where I just love to say to people, this is a practice, not a destination. None of us are going to provide secure attachment to our children 100% of the time, and none of us are going to have 100% securely attached children. Can we just like give ourselves some grace here? Right? It's a practice, not a destination. It's my nervous system regulation tool. I pet myself. Giving parents a broad strokes understanding of childhood development is important because a lot of what we're up against as parenting coaches is that people have unrealistic expectations of their 2-year-old, of their 4-year-old, of their teenager, and then begin labeling that child as disrespectful, disobedient, bad. When we tell our children who they are, they believe us. And this defines their inner narrative for life. And then, they get to go to therapy or have a coach when they're 40 to work it all out. And so when parents understand, I'm sorry, like the 2-year-old cannot sit still for 90 minutes in church on Sunday, right? They just can't. Their brains are like puppy brains. They're little puppy brains, right? 6-year-olds cannot not jump off the couch, right? So how do we get to create a safe space for them to do so? Teenagers' brains are literally rewiring every synapse. So when they forget to take out the trash, it's not that they're being rebellious. They just forgot. And how can we help create a reminder system for them? Text reminders, so they won't forget next week. It lowers the temperature. It lowers the temperature. And so it's important, right? This is where it's like, why don't we all get parenting education? We don't. It's crazy, but a little bit is required here. And this is how we, in age-appropriate ways, support secure attachment. We go deep into this in Jai, and I don't have time for it here today, but it is quite amazing to recognize the insecure attachment strategies within ourselves and do the work to be more securely attached within, to not need external validation, recognition, significance, to self-source that. It's life-changing, literally life-changing in every way. Okay, so that's what pillar am I on, Heather? I think that's 4, right? I hope that's 4, because otherwise I have too many. Thank you. So the final piece is communication, right? We learn to communicate from our family of origin. Our work here at the Jai Institute for Parenting leans very heavily on the work of Dr. Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication. And the way that Rosenberg defines violence is any action that harms the physical, emotional, or relational safety of another human being. And so what we get to learn for ourselves first, and then learn how to coach others, is how to communicate effectively without causing harm. Here at Jai, we have a 10-step empowered communication framework that is wholly reflective of Rosenberg's nonviolent communication framework. It's a bit more specific to parenting, but this is how communication becomes how we parent. My kids mess up. My baby just went to college a month ago. It's not my baby anymore. He's 6 feet tall. And my daughter is 1 year behind him. They're 18 months apart. And, they're teenagers. Things happen. And what I love is that we together have had the opportunity to figure it out. Because the final step of our communication process is exploring solutions together, which means that as kids age, they get more and more voice, responsibility, choice in the decisions that they make about how they are going to clean up their inevitable messes. Which means that when they're adults and they're out in the world, they'll have practiced while they were in our homes. And I'm just really proud of Miles and Charlotte. I'm proud of me, but we're not that special. We just had some tools that can make that the norm for teenagers. My daughter Charlotte and I are going to be on the news together next month talking about this and her experience as a teenager in a peaceful parenting household, and just really proud of her for saying yes to doing that, and excited for what it means for teenagers to not have to have it be what everyone says it has to be. I know, it's so sweet. It's gonna be so fun. Exploring, Diane, I'm not sure what I said. All right, so that is really the foundation of our curriculum. But as I shared at the beginning, that wouldn't make a lick of change for 99% of people without coaching. So are you guys curious to hear about our coaching methodology here at Jai? Because it's the coaching that is the magic. That's our magic sauce here at Jai. It's why when you read our Google reviews, the #1 word that you will see is transformational. That's not because of our curriculum, you guys. There's a million books on nonviolent communication. There's a million books on child development. It's our coaching methods that change everything. Okay, so here at Jai, we have developed something called the 5D coaching model. And these are doorways into allowing our clients to see their resistance to change, their blind spots, their defense mechanisms, their limiting beliefs, their conditioned cultural assumptions about what good parenting looks like in a safe container. We cannot make adults change. Adults must want to change in order for it to happen. So you guys, sidebar, if you have people in your life that are convinced that authoritative, punitive parenting is the way to raise children, oh, right, it can be so hard, but I just invite you to not waste your precious life force trying to outwit, outwill, win over an entrenched mindset. There's a better way. And if you're curious about that, I'll circle back at the end. They're just people who believe that kids need to be hurt to learn. And it's best that we stay in our wheelhouse and influence the people that we can influence and bring this into our own homes. And what I believe will happen is the more of us that are doing that, the more that will diminish itself because people will see our kids having a different experience. Okay, off soapbox. Okay, so as coaches, we do not give advice. There's something here we call the sofa. So as coaches, we want to stay off the sofa. And the SOFA is an acronym: suggestions, opinions, feedback, or advice. That is not what coaches do. We are not here to answer questions. We do not tell other people how to parent their children. Isn't that a relief? It's not our job. As coaches, we use powerful questions. We use our own tools of intuition and awareness to create the space for our clients to see for themselves. They get to decide. We simply hold the container for them to do so. Okay, so in that 5D coaching process, you're going to learn a whole, I'm going to call it your medicine bag of tools to allow transformation to happen, right? To lovingly hold up a mirror so that someone can see that they have a blind spot, so that they can recognize their defensiveness and soften into awareness, right? Because with an unskilled coach, what will happen is someone will be defensive and will try to convince the defense to soften. It's only going to make the defense stronger. It's there because it keeps someone safe, right? That defense mechanism is actually showing us that there's something that needs protecting behind it. And so we're going to circumvent the defense mechanism by getting curious about what's being defended. We use tools like somatic coaching, right? Helping our clients to actually feel what it feels like inside their body. Most of us are living like from here up, and our brains are spinning all these stories, and we don't know how to feel what sadness feels like. And how is it distinct from disappointment? We use generational pattern coaching, right? Is this something that you can recognize when you were a kid? What did that feel like? Communication coaching, of course. Emotional intelligence coaching, of course. Play, creativity, fun, right? Like bringing all of these tools to bear is what allows the information to create change. Oh, April, I need this. I love that. And so that is the coach training aspect of our program. And what's really interesting is I hear consistently from the parents that are through JAI is that it's actually the coaching tools that have the biggest impact on their lives beyond becoming a parenting coach. Because these tools are relevant to every relationship that we have in our life. We can bring them to the relationship that we have with our spouse or co-parent, our ex. If we have a career, I talked to an amazing coach yesterday, Tasha. She's like, you guys, she's like the director of digital media for USA Today. And she's a JAI parenting coach. She's amazing. I was like, you don't need to work there. Come work here. And Tasha was telling me she's using it with her employees at USA Today. So this is that's the sauce, right? Like that's the secret of JAI. All right, you guys. So how am I doing time-wise? That was a lot of talking. Are you curious to hear how this all works? Yeah, cool. All right, so let me walk you through. Just trying to filter if there was anything else. Nope, I'm good. Okay. Let's talk logistics. So our parent coach certification program is a 7-month comprehensive professional education opportunity. It's a commitment, right? Like anything, when you're learning, a new career, you go to law school, it takes 2 years. Here it takes 7 months. But this is a commitment of time and certainly financial commitment of your presence, your energy, your attention to your cohort. And we hold you through that entire 7 months in a way where our commitment to you is that you graduate from JAI having the tools and ability to take this work out into the world safely. And I used to say confidently, but what I'm realizing is that the confidence comes the more you coach. So what I'm going to say is you're going to have the skills and you're going to have the ability to do this work safely. And then your confidence grows with time in the saddle. You're not going to be confident when you graduate. So I need to stop saying that. It's okay. None of us are confident when we become life coaches. That, got to do it scared at first. Like, Kiva, stop talking. You're scaring the poor people. We show you how to do it. In the first 3 months with us, you are going through our parent-facing transformational parenting course as a parent. And you're doing that in a small group cohort and being coached and watching other people being coached by one of our master coaches, master coach trainers. Our training staff are incredible. They're amazing women. We have 5 trainers now. And their work in that first 12 weeks is to coach you and also demonstrate coaching, because your first kind of layer of learning is watching, witnessing, observing, noticing, not just what's happening for you, but you're going to be in a cohort with parents potentially from all over the world from different cultures, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic circumstances. And this is going to someday be you. And so that first 12 weeks is really powerful in that you get to bring the tools of Jai to your own family, to your own children, to the children in your world, but you're also already learning through observation. Then in phase 2, which is the second 3 months of the program, this is where you learn the professional skills of coaching. In phase 2, you're going to begin to work with a practice coaching client that you will take through our curriculum for 12 weeks. And at the end of each weekly session with your practice coaching client, you submit a reflection document. Completing your practice coaching client is how we certify you. To be clear, there is no international accrediting body for parent coaching programs. There are accrediting bodies for life coaching programs like ICF, the International Coaching Federation, but we do not qualify for their, kind of stamp of approval because we're so niched into parent coaching. And that's the case across the board. There is not a parent coaching program that could say that they have any sort of accreditation beyond themselves. And so essentially what you are getting when you graduate from Jai is a licensing agreement to use our curriculum, methods, and coaching process with your future clients. And unlike many of our peers in the world, there's no continuing fee for you to do that. Your enrollment tuition is #Team Jai for life. It is yours. You can use it. You cannot use it. You can work it into other things that you're doing. Use it well. And that's just aligned with our mission that we want to make this as easy for you to succeed as possible. You spend a final month with us in what is internally known as phase 3. You can be the best coach in the world. This can change your family forever, but how we collectively as a community truly make a difference is for you to take this and go serve parents, whether that's in your parent coaching business, in your existing practice as a practitioner, traditional mental health therapist, educator. And so that final 4 weeks, you work with Katie Owen, who is our mindset and business coach, to work through any mindset issues that are going to stop you from going and getting that first client, but also the more strategic, what do I charge? How do I market? What do I need on my website? And so that is the final phase, is we're going to make sure that you graduate with a plan to divest of this work in your life. Because that's the ripple effect of the ripple effect of the ripple effect. We train in small group cohorts. We are typically enrolling 3 to 4 cohorts every month, and we try to have a wide variety of days and times available so that we can find something that best meets your schedule. We typically have 1 evening cohort available per month for those of you who are homeschooling or work outside the home, but the rest of the cohorts tend to be kind of midday US time. That cohort of up to 16 other students will meet at the same day and time every week for the first 6 months. So that's your time. Beyond that, there is ample learning material in our online learning center. Do not be a perfectionist. No one is grading you doing everything in the learning portal. You have lifetime access. So there's a lot of supporting research, additional videos to watch. At a minimum, you'll want to watch the video for that week before your class and do your workbook. There's some great books that we read. We read Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. We read The Power of Showing Up by Dan Siegel. That's where our work around mindset comes in. And Beyond Behaviors from Mona Delahook. They're all available in libraries, on Audible. So I say this in a way to invite you, if you choose to become a parenting coach, to embody a pace of grace. It is not meant for you to consume the whole thing the first time around. That would take you far more time than is required to get to that level of competency that we want you at when you graduate. And so all that together, you should be able to dedicate between 5 and 7 hours a week to your certification process. Cool. All right, so that's the logistics piece. Anyone want to know how our coaches make money? How are our coaches taking this and earning a living? You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, let me just name this. There are many people who come to Jai with no intention of ever taking this work and having a business, and that's perfectly okay, right? I just spoke 2 weeks ago to a principal who is just using this with her teachers in her school, right? We all have our own reasons. So it is by no means required that you go out into the world and sell your services as a parent coach. That being said, for many of us, being self-employed is a great way to be able to be present for our own children and still contribute to our family financially. So it is an aspiration, certainly for many. So there's a few ways that you can use Jai to build a business. So the first is the most obvious, and it's where we recommend that you start, especially if you have not had your own business before. That's learning a whole new thing too. So that's obviously working with one-on-one clients. When you graduate from Jai, you will have access to our turnkey, right? All done for you. Beautiful, beautiful handouts, designed transformational parenting course that you can use with your clients. And we highly recommend it for new students because the curriculum provides a structure, right? It's like a, what's that called? Bumpers, right? It gives you bumpers. You can sell that 12-week one-to-one coaching product for, if you're new, I don't really care. I just want you to get used to exchanging your time for money and being comfortable with it. So if your first few clients, it's $250, great. $500 for 12 weeks of coaching, bargain. Most of our coaches that are more seasoned are around the $2,500 price point for our 12-week one-to-one coaching program. We have coaches that are more, have built a bigger audience or like Instagram famous or live in more affluent markets that are charging upwards of $3,500 for the one-to-one coaching package. And so it really depends on you. And that's why that time with Katie is so important, so that she can set you up to succeed. Because if you start at $500 and you get clients to work with, that's going to build your confidence. And as you build your confidence, you're going to become more comfortable charging more, and then you can increase your prices as your confidence grows. So just starting is the most important thing. So that's the first way that our coaches make money. The second way is group facilitation of Jai's curriculum. This is a bit more of an advanced coaching practice. Group facilitation comes with its own challenges and opportunities, right? The fodder for connection and communication and shared experience is so fulfilling as a coach. And we get to create safety for interpersonal dynamics, different personality archetypes that show up in groups, but it's very fulfilling. And so when you use our group coaching frameworks, which come with the program, you could offer a Jai 12-week course, and you could have 5 parents in it or 10 parents in it, charge them less than one-on-one coaching costs, but you're essentially earning more in the same time. And so most of our coaches graduate, within the course of 6 months to a year to group facilitation. And then as your business grows, you might create your own course or write books or have hybrid coaching where there's some one-on-one and some group. Really, the potential is limitless. What I always advise our coaches to do is to start at the beginning. right? Like, don't go to the, I want to be Destiny and Davis place when you've got 100 Instagram followers and haven't had a client yet. You'll get there. You can get there if that's what you want, but just start with that first client. Because if you get one, you could get 10. And if you have 10 clients, you can have 100. And this is how to build a successful business. Tina, what is the best way to market the business? It really depends on you. And this is why that last 4 weeks with Katie is so powerful. We have coaches who wholly market themselves on social media. We have coaches who are not on social media at all. It is a hard no for them, and they're marketing in their communities, giving workshops at local Montessori school or a chiropractor, doing parents' nights at schools. So we show you all of that. We have what we call the fastest path to client. It's kind of the mini course in those 4 weeks where we show you how to market your business. It's less niche than you'd think. There are so many parents that know that they want to parent differently than the way that they're parenting and the way they were parented. Most of the world doesn't know that parent coaching is a thing yet, right? Like, we know because this is our jam. But when you put yourself out there and start talking to people are like, oh my God, that is so obvious. I need a parenting coach so badly. There's so much demand, and we show you exactly how to do it. This question, I'm wondering about both as being a special needs child, parent, and a coach. I'm not exactly sure what that question means. Special needs. Oh, you're the parent. I got it. Sorry, that took me a second to filter through my brain. We get this question a lot. How does this methodology work with children who have a diagnosis, right? Who are on the spectrum, who have ADHD, any sort of diagnosis? It bears reminding that this is a parent-centric methodology. When a parent of a child learns these tools, things get better for that child regardless of their circumstances. It makes sense, right? Because if we can stay calm, our child can borrow from our calmness. That's called co-regulation. And that there's an acceptance of having the child that we have versus the child that we wish we had can soften some of that internal strife of being the parent of a special needs child. It's really about congruence. And so when parents with special needs children come through JAI, what we'll often hear is, I did all the things, like we've been in all the therapies, we tried all the modalities, and it wasn't until I did this work that my child's behavior actually improved. I had to deal with this. My son had terrible anxiety. He had moved from a small farm Montessori school that he'd been in his whole life through 8th grade to public high school. It was the only option by us. I mean, you guys, panic attacks. I was doing wellness checks on him at 2 a.m. It was a really intense time. It was COVID. And a year or two later, a friend asked me about, Miles made an incredible turnaround. And she said, what do you think was causing all that anxiety? And I took a moment, I took a beat, and I was like, it was me. I have a type A overachieving mother in high school. She would, with no joke in her mind, ask questions like, what happened to the other 2 points? The expectation was that I go to an Ivy League college or, was essentially worthless. That was my ecosystem as a teenager, and I couldn't see it. And when my son moved from Montessori, where there was not, right, there were no grades, there were no tests, it was not even in our world. And then all of a sudden there's grades and tests. And I'm like, join the club. And why aren't you on a team? And what's the grade? And da-da-da. I did it. And then I did coaching with Rebecca. And we got him support. Both. And things got better. Yeah. None of us are perfect parents either. I'm sorry, I make this joke, and I don't know if anyone gets it because you all might be younger than me, but there used to be this ad when I was growing up for the hair club for men. And the guy would say, not only am I the president of the hair club for men, I'm also a client. And then it would switch to a picture of him bald. And I always think about that with me and Chai. All right, you guys, so let me walk you through. Good, Jody, I'm glad you remember it too. I'm aging myself. Logistics. Okay, we talked about the cohort, we talked about the time commitment. Heather's feeding me questions. Thank you so much, Heather. Any tips on how to make peace with your parenting when you try to have the conversation? I assume, Kaya, you're speaking about your relationship with your adult parent. Yes, I just answered my own question. Thank you. Here's the thing, that making peace with your parenting past does not mean that there is going to be a different relationship with your parents. It means that we step into our full embodied human adulthood and give ourselves what they were not able to give us. Our parents come from a different generation. They have a different worldview. Some of us may make headway in terms of having a new relationship with them going forward, but that's not required to do this work. What it means is we embrace, I'm an adult now. And what happened to me as a child was not ideal. It incorporates forgiveness, for sure. It means that we actually give ourselves the opportunity to recognize the gifts that come from it, right? If the trauma that my brother and I experienced as children didn't happen, none of us would be here having this conversation. I can tell you, I have grit. I am a warrior. I will not quit when it comes to protecting children. Would I feel that way had I not watched my brother get Tabasco poured down his throat? Right, so there's always the both and. The both, that was wrong. That shouldn't have happened to me as a child. And look at how far I've come and how willing I am to give my own child a different experience. That's how we create peace with our parenting past. Does that make sense? Deshaun is asking, how do I get my spouse involved? So my answer to that question is your spouse interested? If they're authentically interested, like if they're on board with this with you, we do have a couple's discount to the tuition, which I'll share with you here in just a minute. And if your spouse is, more authoritative and thinks this is wrong, not wrong, that's not the right word. It's not on board yet, right? Just not there yet. I always tell parents, don't put yourself in the trap of trying to be right here, right? Like, let's not create this additional bar of success that looks like I was right. We're going to just live it, right? We're going to just stay in our own wheelhouse. We're going to do the work on ourselves. We're going to deploy what we learn with our children. And what will happen 9 times out of 10 is that a co-parent who is sure, spouse, partner, sure that timeouts were necessary, is going to see that the next time you ask your child to clear their plate, they are going to happily just get up and clear their plate. And then your spouse is going to be like, wait, what? How did you just do that? and it naturally evolves without any power dynamics between who's right and who's wrong. Does that make sense? This program is very LGBTQ friendly. We have many coaches that specialize actually in supporting LGBTQ plus families. We have staff. We are very, what is there's a word that I want that is not coming to my brain. We believe that what we're talking about here is a universal human experience, and that gives us a responsibility for inclusivity that we hold very dearly. That isn't exactly what I wanted to, that wasn't the word, but that was the intent. It's what connects us, is our love for children. Yes, perfect. All right, Heather, did I get all the questions? How to best reparent your inner child? That's the whole making peace with your parenting past. That's really what that whole section is about. And then I would say, right, once we can kind of like heal from the emotional wounding that we experienced, then we're actually doing the work of becoming a human adult, right? So a human adult is capable of taking responsibility without inflicting like, self-flagellation. A human adult is able to set boundaries and hold them without being responsible to another person's emotional reaction to that boundary. A human adult is able to speak their needs and advocate for themselves and others, right? So yes, we need to reparent the inner child, but then we actually need to learn the skills of becoming an actual human adult on top of that, if that makes sense. Amazing. All right, you guys. So our tuition. Our tuition. Lali, cultural differences. We have many coaches in Turkey. We have coaches in the Middle East. We have coaches in the Far East. It is not our experience that they are having, I mean, a coach that I'm thinking of, I think she's in Turkey and now her name is escaping me, has a huge parent coaching business. And it's always interesting, right, how these questions can kind of keep us separate and we assume. But parents all over the world long to be the parent their child deserves. And I do think that that's universal. I really, truly do. There are different influences, there are different circumstances, there are different challenges, but this work lives underneath all of that because we're not addressing the level of circumstances, we're addressing the human who is experiencing those circumstances. We have coaches in Kenya, we have coaches in Africa. One of our trainers, Delicia, is from South Africa. She's living in Sydney, Australia now. Global, we're a global community. I think we have over 1,500 graduates now in 57 countries. Yes. Okay. Damika, you are not alone. We have a whole focus group of Black coaches in our graduates community that are specifically working together to address the cultural challenges of doing this work in the Black community. You are not alone. You will not be alone here at JAI. All right, you guys, so tuition. Any questions? Our entire program is delivered virtually. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you will meet on Zoom. And then obviously the online learning center is available 24/7. Yeah. Nora, we've had quite a enrollment from the UAE recently. This is so cute. You guys are like, what about here? You put your question in the Q&A, Danica. Great. So I'm going to read your question out loud, D'Amica, if that's okay. I do believe that when you know better, you do better. Now it's now I gentle parent. Gentle parenting is not normal in my family. My son rejects all my tools I use for him to become healthy. The communication is better. I think what you're naming, D'Amica, I'm just trying to read to the question underneath your words a little bit. I'm curious how old your son is, because I think that will inform my answer. And the thing that I guess I also want to say is there's no magical pill, right? There's not a magical gentle parenting strategy that changes children's behavior because they're so freaking smart. And they can feel the inner assurance and alignment and congruence that we have as parents. And they will call us out. Yeah, 15. I was going to say, this sounds like a teenager. Teenagers especially will call us out when there's incongruence. So circling back to the beginning of this conversation today, peaceful parenting is not about what you do. It's about who you are. And when we come to parenting from a place of wholeness and healing and assurance and safety, our children, teenagers take longer to come around, right? They have, first of all, they're teenagers, right? So it's natural that they're going to individuate. Number two, they have lots of experience of things being different, and it's going to take them longer to trust, but there are kids, so it's worth it. April, this is such a beautiful question. And so, speaking of universal, something that we experience, April's asking, how do we move past the pain of the damage that we may have caused without knowing to our children inadvertently before we knew better? First of all, we feel it. We feel it. All the way in and through, and maybe we get to grieve or go have a cry or journal, right? But it's really important because this is why emotional intelligence is so powerful. Our authentic emotional experience will show us how we want to do better, right? So we feel it and we acknowledge it and we let ourselves grieve and we let it in. And then once that feels complete, and how it feels complete is we feel clear, right? You know how after you have a good cry, right? When there's a good rain outside, you guys, it washes all the pollen away. Emotions are the same, right? So once we're clear, right? Like, okay, I felt the thing. Then we choose a different path forward and we show ourselves that we can change our behavior. And that develops confidence. Then we have pride, like, oh my God, I learned these new things. And look at me. Look, I just did not lose my temper when our child forgot their homework. We acknowledge the micro moments are like, those are the, like, oh my gosh, I would have behaved like this before and I didn't. And that's how we develop resilience and forgiveness and pride, fulfillment. That's how that works. Thank you for that question. It's common, right? But carrying around the shame doesn't help our kids. Processing the shame and moving on to a new way of being does. Yeah, Jody, you can gentle parent all you want, but if you got your stuff, they can know it and feel it. 1000%. Our kids, you guys, our kids are our teachers. If we let them, they will be the best teachers we ever had if we let them. So good. Trauma can be healed. It can be scary to heal trauma. Can I say something a little provocative? I'm going to say something a little provocative, but I'm trusting that it's in spirit of our collective healing and transformation. Holding on to our trauma is safe. Having it as an identity construct can be very useful. It means that we can stay where we are in our comfort zone and not do scary things. So healing trauma takes work. It takes time. It takes creating safety within yourself and others. And there will come a time, I hope, where you're willing to let that identity aspect go, not the lessons, not the learning, but the identity. Is it okay that I said that? I know that can come up against hurt places. And I'm really wanting to be tender to that and also speak to you from the other side, if that's okay. All right, you guys. Yeah, I can repeat it. Trauma can become a defense adaptation, put simply, right? Our past can become a way we defend ourselves from the future that is waiting for us. I'll do a video about it. You guys are inspiring me. All right, let's talk about, you're welcome. Let's talk about the tuition for Jai. So if you've been on our website or done research on Jai at all, you will see that our published tuition is $3,750. We have an admissions process. And in that admissions process, you'll first fill out an application, and then you will go to either a group admissions Q&A call with our Director of Admissions, Kelly Arzonico, or if the times for the group calls don't work for you, totally fine. You'll schedule a one-on-one call. And then we offer a discounted tuition rate. So I'll just go ahead and share that with you now in the name of full transparency so that you can decide if taking the next step and applying for Jai is for you. So that tuition, if you pay in full, is $3,500 US upfront. We also have a long-term financing option where the tuition is $450 a month for 10 months. So those are the two options. Kelly will share with you on the call. We have a bonus package. We have some additional savings available to you, but I'm gonna save that for her to go through with you in the name of time and just to make sure that she can get all of your questions answered first. So your next step, if you're inspired, if you're excited, if you want to join this incredible community of change makers from all over the world doing this work that actually changes people's lives, you simply need to go to www.giantinstituteforparenting.com/apply. You'll fill out the application. It takes about 5 minutes. It's pretty simple. And then you'll be redirected to the scheduling page to book your admissions Q&A session. We do require that for admissions. We hold our responsibility to the safety of this community to make sure that we do talk to our prospective students before admitting them into the program. We've messed up a couple times, and so it is required that you speak to the admissions team because we have a big responsibility here to ensure that this work is being put into the hands of people who will use it with integrity and safety. It's real stuff that we deal with. If you've already talked to Kelly and you have your contact information, you can reach out to Kelly directly. No need to go through that process alone. So you can, she's Kelly at giantinstituteforparenting.com. Lydia, go speak with Kelly. She will share any current promotions that we have at this time. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, everyone, let's give away some books, Heather. While Heather's doing that, yeah, put in your additional questions. So Lucy, we designed our program for busy moms. 90% of our students here are parents, many are working parents. And so that's why you just have that 1 hour call a week that you must attend, that's at the same day and time every week. So you can do it on your lunch hour or at a time where you can get coverage. And then everything else is done on your own schedule. So that's very common. And it's about 5 to 7 hours a week that you'll want to set aside for Jai, but that can be done at night, on the weekends, whenever it works for you. What does Jai mean? Jai is the Hindi word for victory in the name of good. We are obviously agnostic in our spiritual beliefs, and that word is pretty perfect. So we borrow it with love from the Hindu religion. All right, so our book winners, Anushka, Kaya, and Lucy, if you can DM your mailing address to Heather. For the rest of you, we are doing a book club this month. There's information on our website, so go check that out. And it's available on Amazon, and it's, I think, $6.95 on Kindle, and I wish I could give everybody one. All right, you guys, so go fill out your application. I can't wait to read them. Thank you so much for being with me today and just giving me the space to share my passion for this work in a way that felt really juicy for me. I loved your questions and getting to be with you. I hope that whether or not you choose to move forward with Jai, you got something important from this session today, if nothing more than feeling less alone, because we all need to feel that way. All right, everyone. Thanks for being with me. Bye for now. The book is called The Peaceful Parenting Revolution. If you just search for my name, you'll find it.